Hello and welcome to a friendly chat. Today I'm talking about comics again, and it's another chat about a run of a specific title, and this time I'm going to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man and the run by David Michelinie. So, join me.
And now the news. Don't touch that dial.
So, David Michelinie has had an impressive career. He's been around since at least 1975 writing, which basically he's been writing for my entire life. So 48 years of writing is pretty impressive. He is still with us as of this recording. He's 74 years old, and that's awesome. I'm glad he is. He is really responsible for not just one of my favorite runs on Spider-Man, he was responsible for one of my favorite runs on Iron Man as well. So he's done some really great stuff. But we're going to talk about Spidey today, not Iron Man. So I've already talked about the Iron Man stuff in the past. So my introduction to him was basically the wedding of Peter and Mary Jane. I remember getting that annual from the newsagent, and I managed to track down the issues leading up to it, luckily through a book exchange. But basically, this nice little format here of this trade paperback has all of it in it, and it basically his official run start is 290. He did do issue 205, which is kind of interesting because he was doing the second part of a story that Marv Wolfman started. And I have no idea why Wolfman didn't finish it or why they just gave it to Michelinie, but it was just like, yeah, finish this, which had Black Cat, and it was, I don't even know the story. I haven't actually read it. It's in the sort of gap of my back issues as I go backwards. But one day I will find out. But yeah, this story, 290 to 292, which I refer to as the proposal issues, because 290 starts with Peter proposing to Mary Jane, or ends actually with them, and then the next issue starts with her going, no! Because I think at the time Mary Jane doesn't think Peter's really serious, he's sort of just throwing it out there. And then of course he has to deal with Alistair Smythe and the Spider Slayers, and after that he sort of says to Mary Jane, I'm really serious about this isn't just me messing around, and so she realizes he is serious, and she does love him, so she agrees. And we have the fastest wedding in history from proposal to wedding, because the next thing was the annual. And they had two covers too. They had the direct edition cover, which is them in their wedding best with the cast of the Daily Bugle and Peter's friends in the background. And with the newsagents, they had them in a Spidey costume, and then villains and heroes sort of squaring off in the background of the wedding for a fight. And it's like, well, normally more alcohol is involved for fights at weddings, but super villains and heroes get together. But it was really, really cool. And as I said, that was my sort of introduction to Michelinie's writing. And what I liked about it was he was basically maturing Peter a little bit more. Like he's stepping up to becoming a more mature person, because getting married is a serious commitment, and he's being Spider-Man is a serious commitment as being a hero. But the thought of him being a husband to Mary Jane was that was like, oh, that's something interesting. I hadn't really thought of that. It's the only other married superhero I could think of at the time was Reed Richards, but the Fantastic were a family, so it's like he has a wife, he has a brother-in-law, Ben Grimm's his best mate, but they're like basically a family unit, and that they always worked really well together. Even like I don't even know them since I was married. Like I wasn't reading them back in the day because I wasn't around. But so I had no problem with the idea of Spider-Man getting married. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool, that works. So yeah, we have these 3 issues, this annual, and then Michelinie takes a break for three more issues as DeMatteis shows up to do Kraven's Last Hunt across the 3 Spidey books, Spectacular, Web, and Amazing, for 2 issues per. And then Ennis Senti's on for 1 issue per for another story arc called Man Dog Wood. after that, Michelinie is back, and he does issues 296 and 297 with I think it's Alex Savuvic. I'm really sorry about pronouncing that. Savuvic, maybe. Or yeah, I'm terrible at pronouncing this name. Actually, it's not Uvic, it's Uk. So anyway, sorry, Alex, I completely butchered your name, but yeah, he does these two issues. Spidey's fighting Doc Ock, and yeah, it's kind of neat. It's really cool. Besides, it's like Doc Ock, he's a great villain. And then he introduces a character called Chance, and he gets his new art partner for quite a while, which is Todd McFarlane. So Todd McFarlane shows up. He does issue 298 with this beautiful cover, really dynamic. I didn't see this issue for a long time. My first McFarlane issue was issue 300, and then after that it was sort of all over the place. But yeah, so we got these two great issues where they introduced this character Chance, and that was really, really neat. But there's a great, an interesting sort of last sort of stinger on the last few pages of each issue as they introduce the next big villain of Spider-Man, and one of the biggest to really be created, not by Stan Lee, and that is Venom. And that was with basically last page of 299, but issue 300 is the fight between Spider-Man and Venom, the alien costume. And that was amazing because, no pun intended, but it was an interesting sort of thing because they'd done the saga of the alien costume, and I had the trade paperback of that, and that was really cool. But yeah, basically for it to go to that, and it's like, oh, this is cool, this is where Venom came from with the alien costume saga, and it's like, yeah, neat stuff. But and he was a serious villain. He was tough. He could get around Spider-Man's Spidey sense. He was stronger. He was a shapeshifter. So yeah, it was some serious threat. And Eddie Brock, Venom's alter ego, hated Spider-Man. So you had a villain who knew his identity, who could circumvent his powers, and could really hurt him. Like, not just him physically, but his family, his friends, everyone. So he was a legitimate threat, and which was great because it meant that Spider-Man couldn't just coast through, making wisecracks and dealing with, muggers and stuff like that. It was like, this is serious. And of course, he is responsible for Venom because he brought Venom back from the Beyonders world during Secret Wars. So it's like, yeah, you're responsible for this villain in every way. So that was really, really neat. So yeah, Michelinie creates definitely the most impressive villain of from the 1980s up. Like, absolutely just smashes out of the park with Venom. And yeah, then after that they sort of go back to sort of introducing sort of Peter's sort of new work. He's sort of doing a bit of working at the university and stuff like that. Mary Jane's continuing her modeling career and stuff like that, and they actually get to live in this beautiful apartment building, which is kind of neat, which sort of sets up the next threat, which is a stalker who also lives there, actually owns the building, and he's obsessed with Mary Jane. So you get these issues with Peter sort of he sells a book of his photographs of Spider-Man, and actually becomes quite sought after, which is really, really cool. So their problems with money sort of start to disappear, and it's like things start looking up for them until the stalker comes along. But the thing about the McFarlane run too is just the covers just really just stood out on the shelf, and you just sort of go, wow, that just looks really, really cool. And it's like, at the time I was like, I vaguely know the Prowler, but I'm like, I really want to read that because he just looks really cool. But yeah, and it was like, so yeah, Mary Jane gets kidnapped. Peter goes completely bug nuts trying to work out what happened. Beat 18 levels heck out of the Taskmaster, had nothing to do with it. But yeah, it was really, really great stuff, really good covers, and it was a serious threat against them because it had nothing to do with supervillains. It was just a guy who was wealthy that owned the building and basically was like, yeah, I want her. And yeah, it was, yeah, and that was like an interesting sort of threat because it's like, as I said, it's just a normal person. It's not like some super powered creep. It's just a regular creep. And so that was kind of really, really fascinating sort of thing to do because that's just something that can affect anybody. It's yeah, you just don't know. So that was really, really a great sort of story arc, and it went for a while. It went because Mary Jane was gone for quite a few issues while Peter's tearing the city apart and not realizing that she's in the same building he is. So yeah, that was some great stuff. Michelinie also was able to add tie-ins to events. So soon after that story ended, there was the Inferno story arc that was happening in the X-Men, and it affected all of New York City. So I love that. I remember getting this issue off the newsstand in Melbourne when I was on school holidays. I was like, this is so good. Just I love that cover. So yeah, you know, they bring back, you know, I had Hobgoblin vs Green Goblin. You go, wow, I want to read that. So yeah, he was able to sort of slot in a crossover into his book. Some writers had issues with that, where they're like, I have to put my story arc on hold because of your crossover, and I get that. You know, there are a lot of writers who plan their stories like years in advance, but Michelinie was really able to just slot these in, and it was really, really neat. And of course, you know, a year later, we get the return of Venom, which I love that cover too with Hydro Man. But yeah, when this one hit the shelf, I was like, wow. Like, just once again, McFarlane's art is just fantastic, and the story was really good. But the thing is too, like, Spidey was one of those books that I wasn't collecting every single issue, even though the art was brilliant. It was just like I had to really pick and choose because I didn't have a heck of a lot of money, and I wanted to read everything, and you can't. But so you know, I missed a few here and there, but luckily, just the covers are so good. But like a friend of mine, Brad, who has been on my live streams and stuff, he was still getting Spidey, and he kept me in the loop. And one day he said, "This is what's happening. You know, Peter's you know working at the university in the science department, so he's utilizing his big brain and stuff." And he showed me this issue, which Paladin, I remember him. He was kind of cool. And it was like, once again, like Michelinie was basically throwing Spider-Man not just into a serious incident, it was an international incident. So he had to go to Silver Sable's country and try to stop an assassination. And it involved the Flag Smasher and Ultimatum. It involved Captain America getting his having to show up and basically help out. So I love this cover. I love Cap, and it's just seeing McFarlane do Cap, so good. And yeah, it was really a really serious sort of plot for him, and it's one of those things where you think that surely Spider-Man as a character will go, look, I'm good with dealing with this and that, but I have nothing to do with international intrigue and things like that. But he is a hero, and he went, I can help. I will help. Of course, when you find out that the Red Skull is behind a lot of this, you're like, how the heck can Spider-Man deal with something that's well out of his circle of influence and general villainy? But it was really great. And the thing is too, that, as I said, Michelinie really gave Spider-Man a run for his money with which that story arc. It's like even to the point where the Red Skull tried to bribe him, and for a fraction of a second he considered it, because after the whole incident with Mary Jane being abducted, the guy responsible evicted them, and then even though he was in prison, he was like, no, kick him out. So they were having issues, and then he tried to get her blackballed from modeling and acting and things like that. So they were having money issues, and they were once again living with Aunt May. So yeah, he had this one sort of like, maybe this is solve everything, and then just went, no, I'm a hero, I will not do that. And of course, it's that Return of the Jedi, so be it Jedi sort of bit at the end of Return of the Jedi with the Emperor. It's a great scene, and it's like, I like the fact that, yeah, like Michelinie sort of, gave that just that moment of potential acceptance of such a horrible sort of villain bribing him to go, maybe I could do this. But great stuff, really good. In between that, of course, McFarlane didn't do absolutely every issue. He didn't do like the issue before that, and then he was off for a couple of issues, and then he showed up with this fantastic issue with Spidey with cosmic powers fighting the Incredible Hulk during Acts of Vengeance, and it's so good. And that's Todd's last issue before he goes onto his own book. And yeah, so early on, amazing stuff with Michelinie. He's sort of like basically tested the waters, introduced a new villain, amped up Peter's work, as well as basically now he's a husband, as well as like utilizing his science skills in a practical setting, which is really neat. But also sort of taking the legs out from under him by basically having him evicted, and his wife's now out of work and stuff like that. So it's sort of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So there's still that drama and threat that not everything is perfect in his life, because life isn't perfect, and that was really, really cool. But Todd McFarlane bows out as the lead artist for David Michelinie, and he gets a new one. Filling in for a couple of issues between when before McFarlane's last issue, was Eric Larson, and he becomes the new artist for Michelinie's run. And his art style is different, but it's still dynamic, and so he'll have great covers with just stuff happening. With the Punisher, he started doing this thing where he'd have like lots of little heads at the top, sort of going, here's some characters that are also going to be in here. So it's like some old lady with a rolling pin, Black Cat, Mary Jane, Microchip. So he started doing that quite a bit, actually. Venom comes back. And he continues this little thing. McFarlane did this little, using the barcode corner for direct editions. He'd draw little cartoons in there. And Eric Larson continued doing that for a while, until they got the direct edition barcode in the bottom there. But yeah, once again, really dynamic art style, and as we got. The story arc sort of, as I said, ratcheting up. Michelinie brought back the Sinister Six. They brought a new team together. It was a really good story, and it was interesting too, because at the time, Sandman was no longer a villain, so Doc Ock basically threatened the family that Sandman was living with to get him back into the Six, and he was just like, so Sandman was like, I don't like this, but he had no choice, so he sort of done that, and that was kind of cool, because because Sandman had become sort of turned a corner and stopped being a villain. He ended up working for Silver Sable, which was really neat. But Eric Larson stayed on for quite a while. He was really good. He went through some interesting bits and pieces. It wasn't in every single issue, but he did a fair chunk of them. They introduced a new character called Cardiac, which was this guy. It's actually kind of an interesting character. He sort of came across as a potential villain, but was sort of more anti-hero. Like Venom kept coming back and forth, like, every once. Generally, it was almost like every year Venom sort of came back and was like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm going to make your life miserable." And it gets to a point where Spider-Man sort of tricks him to deal with it, but to leave him alone. At issue 350, Eric Larson bows out and he's like, "Okay, I'm done." So he goes away. I have a feeling that might be around the time Image started, so it would have been McFarlane's run on Spider-Man would have finished at issue 16. Eric Larson's run on Amazing would have finished around that same time, so they would have gone, right, clean break, we're off to do our Image stuff, and we will leave Spider-Man for a new artist to go with Michelinie's writing. At issue 351, we get Mark Bagley, and Mark Bagley was brilliant, and he stayed there for a long time. Of course, there are issues where someone else fills in for him and that, but for the most part, Mark Bagley was there beyond Michelinie's run when he ended. So, and I really like Bagley's run. Like, he'd done other things in the past. I remember him, I think, he did the RoboCop 2 comic adaptation. I remember his art style from that. And the thing about Bagley is he's got really clean lines. I will show an example in a bit. Really clean line work. But the other thing I love about him is he's consistent. And it's one of those things that for the duration of him on Amazing, and more importantly for the duration of him on Ultimate Spider-Man, which I think may still be the longest run of an artist and writer working together. I think it was like 100. It was over 100 issues. It might have been 110, 115 issues. And the thing is too, you read all of them. If you just read them all in, not want to say one hit, but in a few sittings, his art style does not deviate. It is just the same all the way through, which is brilliant. It's really good. He does dynamic sort of action sequences, but on the flip side to that, he can also do just somber stuff. My friend Brad the other night, we were talking about Bagley, and he said that he reminded me of the What If number 4, which is what if Venom had bonded with Spider-Man. And the thing about Bagley too is he's really good at facial expressions, whether it's someone who is elated, if they're surprised, if they're angry. He does them really well, but a lot of comic artists generally can basically do the whole I'm angry, furrowed brow, grit teeth, or I'm happy, smile and lighter eyes, and then just something in between the two, like I'm just normal. But there are subtle differences between different emotions, and Bagley seems to really do that well. And it's one of those things that if I ever got to meet him again, he was at one of our conventions. He was at the first comic convention, the Supernova. I would love to ask him whether he actually has like photo reference and stuff like that, and that's how he learnt to do that, because he does it really well. Because there's a scene in that book where Peter Parker has basically had all of his life sucked out of him by the symbiote, and he's an old man, and he's got just this look on his face of just I'm dying, and I've been defeated by this, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm talking to Reed Richards, and it's just like, wow, you can sense the emotion in it. So yeah, he was really, really great with that, and still is. So he's still a great artist. Like his work, he did a massive run on Thunderbolts. He did, loves the work. So yeah, but Michelinie basically was like, well, I want to see if Lightning can strike twice with his villain creations. Like, as I said, characters like Cardiac and that were interesting, but he went back to the well of Venom and created Carnage with Bagley. And basically, yeah, went, well, Venom's a tough and strong villain. Let's make one that's psychotic, and boy did he do well with Carnage. So yeah, and it's fun. It's interesting too because a lot of people, like, the amount of Venom comics or Venom related comics that I sell in the shop is just obscene. Like, just people just going, oh, do you have any Venom comics? Like, yeah, we've got Venom comics. Here they are. And they're like, wow, this is great. Oh yeah, I want that one. Yeah, that's really cool because I really like Venom because he's an anti-hero now, so he doesn't need to follow the rules of standard heroism. So a lot of people like that, like with Wolverine. Wolverine, doesn't necessarily follow the rules of being an X-Man. He just like goes, oh, I'm gonna go off and fight Sabretooth now and cause a massive amount of damage. So that's that sort of, he's cool. And so yeah, Venom is a cool character. He's really, he's interesting because he's not just, as one of my colleagues I used to work with, he referred to him as an evil twin. And he didn't like Venom because he said Venom's just an evil twin and that's boring for him. It's like, he is, but he's not. Like, yes, he is because he has similar powers to Spider-Man, so yes, he is, and he's a bad guy, so he is technically an evil twin. But it's a lot more than that. Like, the fact that there's this interesting dynamic with the character that Eddie Brock hates Peter Parker and hates Spider-Man for ruining his career. But the symbiote's still in love with Peter. Because he secretly wants to be bonded with him because of all the adventures they had before Spider-Man realized it was alive and got rid of it. So there's that sort of craziness within the actual matrix of Venom, that there's anger and love together, and it sort of makes the character a bit kooky, and it's really good. It's great. I love that about it. It's so he's a little bit more nuanced in his abilities. Once he realized, like, and the thing is too that Venom never really liked killing people. Like, anyone he ever, like, early on, like when he was escaping prison in issue 315, he actually suffocates a guard and he feels really bad about it. He, like, kisses the guard on the head and says, "We are sorry," and leaves. And it's like he doesn't really want to kill people, but it's like, I've got to escape. You're in my way. Sorry. So that's kind of, I like that about Venom too, that he's like not. He's a reluctant killer. Like, he's not really a murderer. He's sort of more of a reluctant killer. But Carnage is a murderer, and he's full-on, like, Hannibal Lecter, psychotic sort of type. And he had a simpler design to Venom. Is like, I mean, it's just the red and the shading and all that. But he's just the eyes. He doesn't have the logo or anything like that, which is kind of neat. So yeah, and he had different abilities. He could solidify his tendrils and make axes and other things like that. And it was really, really crazy. And the fact that Cletus Cassidy, his actual host, is insane. So the symbiote is insane too. And there's none of that sort of sympathy or anything like that for victims. It's just like, no, I want to kill as many people as possible. So yeah, and that was kind of neat. Spider-Man had to get Venom on board to help stop Carnage, and that's sort of when they sort of worked that sort of, yeah, okay, I sort of see where you're coming from and things like that. So yeah, Michelinie's character creation, especially his villains, are really good. I mean, you can argue going, oh, he created the same character twice. It's like, not really. It is and it isn't. But it is one of those things that, yeah, they have gone back to the symbiote well a few too many times. But that's comics, really, honestly. Can't really do much with that. But yeah, like, things continued. We get, like, the 30th anniversary issue where each title had this, big hologram, had a flat cover, so there was a red cover, a blue cover, a green cover, and Amazing at the black cover. Plus, it also introduced Spider-Man 2099, which wasn't written by Michelinie, but sort of shows up in that. But yeah, heading towards the end, we get a couple more Venom sort of appearances. But the other thing Michelinie brought back, he brought back the Parkers. So yeah, Mary Parker and Richard Parker come back from the dead. And it was one of those things where you're like, how and why and what, but there was a point to it, and it was kind of an interesting sort of when that story ended, which is pretty much where that story ends is when Michelinie ends, which is at 388. They deal with the final part of the Parkers coming back, and Michelinie bows out, and it was an interesting sort of way to end it. It was like, I bring the Parkers back, and there's a reason for it, and I'm out. Bye. So yeah, but Bagley stayed on beyond Michelinie. DeMatteis came back on and took over the writing. Went right through Clone Saga stuff. But yeah, really great run of comics. As I said, 290 to 388, with the exception of 9 issues. There was a 6-issue story arc in the middle there. That was, I can't even remember who wrote it. Bagley did the art. It was called Round Robin, which involved Moon Knight and Moon Knight's former sidekick, and it had everybody was in it. I think the Punisher showed up. I think the New Warriors showed up in it. It was like one of those sort of wow, and it was bi-weekly, so he basically took 3 months off, and that was that. But yeah, and as I said, you factor in annuals and stuff, and it's pretty much a 100-issue run of Amazing Spider-Man, and it was a really good run. It was just for some people, it's like one of those things where you sort of go back to where you were when you started it. And yeah, I was heading into high school, so it was about 87 when I started it. So I was just in the last year of primary school, heading into high school when I started reading Michelinie Spider-Man. He wasn't the first run of Spider-Man I read. That would have been basically the Roger Stern stuff when he introduced the new Hobgoblin, and that was great. That was great as well. But for me, as much as I love that Roger Stern Hobgoblin stuff, the Michelinie Spider-Man was like the consistent sort of run that I was sort of always coming back to. Like I'd sort of stop reading it for a few months, and then I'd either see a cover or something had happened, and I'd be like, I got to go back into Spider-Man again. And then eventually, like after high school, and I started getting a job, and I got disposable income, I could go back and fill the gaps that I missed while I wasn't able to buy these books. But yeah, Michelinie's run is that sort of run for me. It's like the one that I wanted to finish that run before going further backwards. It's like, this is the immediate stuff I need to complete. And it was great stuff. And as I said, it's the things I liked about Michelinie's run is that he started evolving Peter beyond, outside of being Spider-Man. Like, he's always Spider-Man, but his life outside of Spider-Man, like as I said, he's now a husband. He has a more important job within the university, and I always like that when a character evolves. If they can evolve a character, the character stays fresh and interesting. And that's the thing that they've done with Spider-Man over the years. Like, yeah, as I said, he started off, he was a school kid. He graduated high school. He went to university. He finished university. I don't know if he ever realized. I think he was a few credits short of finishing. But became a photographer full time. Sold a book of his photos. Went back to working in science labs in the university and working with with scientists and stuff like that, because he is very smart on his genius level intellect. As I said, it's one of those things. There is a really great progression of the character, but there are certain eras where it just seems like there is treading water, like nothing really happens. But yeah, as I said, Michelinie he started with the wedding, and then goes, right, Peter's now married. What do we do next? All right, he's getting a job here. He's got a good life with Mary Jane. They're living in this nice place. Oh no, now there's a threat to that life because of a creepy owner of the building. So yeah, like he could factor in stresses and drama without having to necessarily be, oh no, Hobgoblin's back, or Doc Ock's back causing issues. It's like, because it's like some issues affect Spider-Man, some issues affect Peter, and that was really cool. Like he managed to do both, and it was really, really good. So yeah, Michelinie's run on Spider-Man, I don't think it gets as much love as it should, and it's, as I said, it's amazing because just the Venom creation alone should give the Michelinie run that level of respect and admiration from the amount of people who love Venom as a character. Trouble is that a lot of the time people just associate the character with the artist, and it's like, so a lot of people go, oh, Todd McFarlane created Venom. It's like, well, he co-created Venom. David Michelinie co-created Venom as well, co-created Carnage with Mark Bagley. It's like you gotta give both people equal credit, because it is a 50-50. It's like, one will go, I got this idea for a character, and it's like, cool, I've got some. Do you think that looks good enough? Is this it? Like, you can't always just go, it's like everyone's working on the same page when they come up with an idea. There's always some toing and froing. But as I said, just for the strength of Venom alone, and then Carnage, I'm amazed that Michelinie doesn't get that level of notoriety. I mean, don't get me wrong, that you can buy like the Michelinie McFarlane omnibus of just all of them, and you can get a Michelinie Eric Larson one. But that's also, you can get like a Dan Slott one. You can get like lots of other creative teams get their own omnibus. So it's one of those things that I think should get a lot more notoriety out there. And the thing is too, I think Michelinie definitely is proud of his creation with Venom, because he went off and created this miniseries, Lethal Protector, which became a series of miniseries. Like, the amount of Venom never had an ongoing series back then. It just had another miniseries, another miniseries, another miniseries. It just kept going, which was kind of neat, because it meant at any point they could just pull the plug and it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, in the end, there's 2 omnibuses of all of these, of all the miniseries. But yeah, Bagley on the art, and you got Michelinie on the writing. That was a decent story, and that's when they sort of went, Venom can be a hero or an anti-hero. He doesn't have to be a villain eating brains. So yeah, it's just one of those things. It's a character that I always like. Spidey. He is like a focal point character for Marvel. I mean, he was their logo for a long time. They always had Spidey there. And as I said, I love the evolution of the character over the years. So yeah, it's Michelinie's run is pretty much my favorite run of Amazing Spider-Man. As I said, now there's nothing wrong with other runs, and people normally go Lee Ditko, Lee Romita, Lee Romita, and whoever else. It's like lots and lots of the earlier runs get a lot more mentioning than just the later runs. And I mean, I remember talking to people in the shop, and they'll do that. They just go, oh yeah, no, Spider-Man is John Romita Jr. not John Romita Jr. John Romita Sr. and Stan Lee. That's Spider-Man's run, and it's like, oh, it's one of them. Or to be Jerry Conway and Romita Jr. Senior. I keep saying Junior because I'm a massive fan of John Romita Jr.'s art. But yeah, and I had to keep reminding them that Spider-Man did continue in the 80s and 90s and is still continuing today. But yeah, there's lots and lots of great runs. I mean, I love the J. Michael Straczynski run for the same reason that I really like this run. Straczynski, once again, elevated the character to a more adult sort of level by basically making him a school teacher. I went, there we go. I can be a school teacher. I have the skill set, and it's an important sort of career. It really is. So that was kind of cool too. So, but yeah, it's I thoroughly recommend this run. As there's three main sort of art teams on it. You got Todd McFarlane's run. You've got Eric Larson's run. You got Mark Bagley's run. And there's Colleen Doran did an issue here. You've got John Romita Jr. starting the whole thing off with the wedding issues, and Paul Smith doing the actual wedding annual. But yeah, lots of great teams on it. But the consistency of the writing is the main thing about this. It's like there are a lot of great runs out there. Like, you know, you've got and a lot of great runs where the writing continues where the art teams change. And I love that. I love when you can still keep a writer on a book and modify the art team and it's still great. X-Men did it with Chris Claremont. Multiple great runs on that. Hulk did it with Peter David. Once again, multiple great runs on that. Iron Man with once again with Michelinie and that. And it's like, you know, he did two great runs of Iron Man. So yeah, when you get a really big run and you can get multiple art teams and you still like it regardless of the art team, because the art teams they got are all great, it's just magical. And this is definitely one of them. So yeah, David Michelinie's run of Spider-Man with whatever art team you desire. Have you read it? Is it one that you think of? Do you ever consider the author of the book, or you're more of a I just care about who draws it? No judgment. I mean, I'm more of a writer person, so I do care more for the actual writing. But the art is important because it is a visual medium. So, you know, what's the point if there's no good art? But yeah, but absolutely, it's one of those things. Like, is this a run that you remember? Is it a run that you remember fondly? Is it a run that you go back to and go, you know what, I want to reread the creation of Venom and the creation of Carnage, and I want to read Cardiac. You know, is that like one of those runs that you care, or are you more like, you know, no, I just like the original stuff, or I like the original John Romita Sr. stuff. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. So yeah, but in the comments below, please let me know what have you ever considered this run and haven't had an opportunity to read it because you weren't around during the same time as I was a kid? That's cool too, not a problem. But yeah, let me know. And you know, are you a fan of some of Michelinie's creations like Venom and Carnage? I mean, you know, I'm happy that Michelinie's getting the notoriety with the movies as well. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of Spider-Man 3. I didn't really care for the the Venom in that movie. I just didn't really think it worked very well. But I've enjoyed sort of the newer sort of interpretation a lot more. But yeah, as I said, Michelinie, McFarlane, Michelinie, Bagley, Michelinie, Eric Larson, Michelinie, John Romita Jr. It's like, yeah, It's one of those things where it just, all those artists work really well with that writing. It's like chocolate and peanut butter, to use an American comparison, or a combination, I should say. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on this matter. Hopefully I have entertained you all, and maybe inspired some people to check out the writings of David Michelinie on Amazing Spider-Man if you haven't already, or if you have and it's been a while, maybe go back and check them out again. Lots of them are available. You can get them in Epic collections now. Marvel do that really well, which is like about a year worth of storytelling in a trade paperback. Or you may just go to your shelf and grab the back issues. So yeah, if hopefully you check it out, and if that's the case, well done. Other than that, remember, well, actually, before I do my outro stuff, next Sunday is Easter. There won't be a video because who's going to watch a video about this on Easter? You should be having lunch or dinner with your families and gouging on chocolate and stuff, I suppose. I don't know. But so no video next week. But until next time, keep on reading, keep on watching, keep on listening, and keep on gaming and playing. Keep yourselves entertained, because there's lots of great stuff out there. So until next time, bye-bye.
More updates.
Damn the man! Save the Empire!